What is up, fellow Kryptonians? Welcome back to a brand new Superman and Lois breakdown, recap, and review. This is for episode 7, titled Anti-Hero, and again, I really enjoyed this episode, and this episode was huge for the development of this story on so many fronts, to the point of where there was some quite unexpected moments happening. It was just, I would say, probably, I mean, I'd have to reflect over it again, but right off the top of my head, after having just seen this episode as of like 10 minutes ago, one of the best of this season. I think maybe a lot of us can agree on that. There's a lot of frustration. It's like, screw you, Anderson. I kind of saw, I mean, I'm not trying to sound alone in this. We all saw Anderson going this way. And, you know, whether you like the Marvel comparisons or not, I felt like I was fairly spot on with the US agent style aspect of Anderson here, because he really is kind of like, hey, let's give myself super serum to do anything that is necessary to go through with what I think is right. And I kind of really like that. Just want to say thank you to everyone for getting me to 100,000 subscribers. I'm going to be doing a live stream and a individual video on that, so this isn't really the video for that, but anyone who's watching this right now, thank you to anyone who's brand new here. But also check out my Obi-Wan Kenobi series update video, because if you're a Star Wars fan and you're looking forward to seeing Ewan McGregor as Kenobi in that series coming May, well, they just released episode images from episode 1, and I get into that earlier on today, which is why this video is coming out a little bit later. But right at the beginning, one of my favorite things of this episode is that the use of Taro, shall we say, Morgan Edge, but let's refer to him as Taro, is so well done, I think, in this show. A lot of other shows, when they bring back characters, it feels kind of artificial, where it's just like, oh, we're bringing him back again kind of thing. But I feel like from the very moment, it's like, look what the wind blew in. Absolutely brilliant line, by the way. I was just so happy to see him again. I was happy knowing that he would be sent to prison last episode. I mean, sorry, Superman, but I was looking forward to seeing Taro, and it's just his reaction. But it's a very organic, slow arc redemption for him. That's not being pushed too much in one direction. I felt like what he did this episode, and I feel like what Morgan Edge has known his whole life, is that what he's been doing is kind of wrong, maybe. But when they grounded that with the flashbacks, it's like he has been conditioned by his father, but we always saw that internal struggle. So, kind of jumping ahead of myself here, but when we got into those latter parts of the episode, I don't felt like, oh, why would he save Superman? It felt like he does love his brother, and if anything, the emotional moments from last season when he just wanted his brother to join him. I think no matter what, Taro has just wanted belonging, kind of that of what Cal has had, but literally had the reverse upbringing. We can't forget how he was imprisoned by people, which is, you know, something that I wouldn't have really properly remembered until I just spoke about it right now. So I really do love the character of Morgan Edge, and I'm glad that it doesn't feel like they're being extremely tropey whenever they bring him back. It feels like they bring him back and it's some good material to watch on screen. But then we have Anderson arrive. Frickin' Anderson. I love to hate this guy, but that's exactly what they want from, you know, the audience response. And he's been given command of the full operation. Now, one thing I wasn't really happy about is that the general from last episode who was having a go at Anderson, General Hardcastle, excuse the phone, he literally says the arrest was sanctioned by General Hardcastle herself. Now, the reason why I find that a teeny bit problematic, and I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong, but I was waiting for the end of the episode when Sam Lane was talking to Lois at the table saying, like, he went AWOL. I was expecting, like, he wasn't even signed off to do what he did. And, you know, I felt like there were teasers for that when we had the soldier who was always reporting to Anderson saying, oh, but sir, what about Hardcastle? And he's like, you know, tell her to get back to us when we have something to report. It just felt like, oh, maybe she didn't sign off on that. And since he's kind of the commander of this whole operation at the DoD, she was waiting to get into contact with him. So it felt like this wasn't signed off, and that would make sense because she was really pissed with him compromising the relationship of the US's best military defense. That is Superman. But then, I mean, again, I don't think I missed anything out, but no, she did sign off on it. So it's like, really? I know the angle they're framing as treason and stuff like that, but I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I'm not so sure that was navigated the best way, and since you have frickin' Anderson going US agent style this whole episode, and as of the last few episodes, you may as well have just chucked in there that, like, oh, the general didn't sign off on it, and he's been trying to reach through, but Anderson had been, you know, controlling his own soldiers and underlings. And do you know what I mean? Maybe that would have caused issues in of itself, because the general could have just called up saying, arrest this man now, he's defying orders. But do you see what I mean? I feel like it kind of got rid of that scene for me when she was having an absolute go at Anderson, saying, you did this, you know, this has all happened under your command. Sam Lane never had a problem with him, blah, blah, blah. But now she's like, yeah, arrest Superman. What? Don't think that I'm not looking at it at all sides, by the way, because I do see how we have Superman kind of harboring a monster who killed American soldiers. But I do feel like, given the context of all the previous things and how he's held Morgan Edge captive and how the government knew that, but I guess Sam Lane was in control at the same time. I'm not going to delve down this rabbit hole for too much longer, but I feel like the general, instead of arresting the Superman who has defended your country, one of which you were pissed at, Anderson, for like compromising the relationship of your best, your response is to arrest him. I don't know about that. But anyway, Lois was great this episode. This is one of the episodes I was really anticipating in a good way, because I couldn't wait for her to have a go at Jonathan in just the entertainment side. But again, as always, I'm a huge fan of this casting of Elizabeth Tulloch, and her acting chops, as always, were off the scale. They really, really were. But in the meantime, we had a bit of a Cushing storyline going on in this episode, as we always do. That's got quite, I wouldn't say center stage this season, but quite an elevated platform compared to what they had last season, considering how Lana is basically going up against the mayor, the current mayor. But in the meantime, it was a little bit about dealing with the aftermath of Kyle. It wasn't really properly addressed until the near end of this episode, where we had Kyle approached by Sarah and whatnot. But initially we saw Kyle's recovery chips, and Sarah keeps getting called by her dad this episode, texts and whatnot. Jordan is appearing. I kind of feel bad for Jordan. I'm not gonna lie, I do feel like he, especially after the issue I think a lot of fans had with the whole cheating thing, and how, I don't feel ashamed of it and stuff like that, and how Lana was just like, oh yeah, if he doesn't forgive you, he doesn't even deserve you. It was such a weird thing that I'm glad in my comment section people were just like, yeah, that is weird. But the reason why I just went into that random tangent there is because I guess I do understand Sarah's perspective, because she's getting a bit snappy at Jordan. She can't talk to him, so she ends up talking to freaking Aubrey later on, the one she kissed at the summer camp. I really hope they're not going to go anywhere. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but just to include that here, I don't think they did properly tease that there's going to be a connection, and it does make sense in the story and how she's been through a child divorce situation, so she needed somebody who she felt like could really understand it, and seemingly from her eyes, Jordan doesn't understand what it's like to have a parent in pain in the way that she's seeing her mother cry. But oh, Sarah, if only you knew what Lois Lane had to deal with and what Jordan's kind of had to watch. But yeah, I don't know, like Jordan, is just trying to be there for her, and I do ultimately like them together. But yeah, I just feel like, I really hope, when they went to like touch or get the receipt, they're like, oh, they kind of touched at the same time. But if they wanted to lean in that even more, I feel like they would have. I felt like that was just a coincidental touch. It's like, hey, we may as well do it. But I hope Aubrey doesn't become a problem, because that will be the kind of tropey CW stuff I just don't want them to get into. But what I want to say is that the CW, every time I've had an apprehension like that with Superman and Lois, it's like they begin to do it, or like Kyle with his Tonya woman kind of thing. I thought they were going to drag that out, but they kind of stop it before it starts. And it's like, what a relief. So I think it's the same thing with anything that I'm kind of worried about. I do wonder what Jordan would have felt about her meeting the girl that she kissed, and it's not technically a big deal, but I wonder if he even knows, and if that's going to be an issue in future episodes. We're just going to have to wait and see. Maybe they won't even address that, and either way, I want to move on from this now. So this is when the police arrive at school. What I like about this is how it shows this episode, and this is a family show, as I keep saying, in terms of it's meant to show Superman's family, the Cushing family, community, and stuff like that, all while delivering you Superman and Son's excellence, and Lois Lane, and all of this good stuff, right? But this episode highlighted a lot of family issues, or like, things that you can really experience in everyday life, whether you're a parent or not a parent. And Jonathan, whether that's him using alien narcotics, so to speak, or, the whole thing going on with Sarah and her mother and dealing with Kyle there, the relationship of, do you just ignore a family member? What will that achieve if they're trying to reach out to you, without retreading that same commentary of what I just went through? I feel like Superman and Lois does a good job to not like bash you over their head with it, because what they're telling is relevant to the story, but they do get into it at the same time. Like, I feel like after this moment in school, when we have Jonathan just wanting to be a good guy and not ruin someone else's life, we understand his motivations, because we've always said that he's on the side bench, so to speak, and I'm not saying you should ever do anything like that, but you can at least understand how his mind got to that place of XK and whatnot. His kind of good-hearted spirit at the same time to sacrifice his own, I guess you could say, shot in life at a youthful age. You know, you're in high school, like, it's going to kind of screw a lot of things up. You know, are you going to play college football or not? Oh, yeah, but it's not going to look good on your record if you've been kicked out and you have to attend another high school, or maybe as Clark teased at the end, online. So it is a very nuanced thing there. And I do have to admit, from a bit of an older person's perspective, I'm not a parent or anything, but like, Jonathan is such a good kid that I don't think, and yes, Lois and everyone doesn't have, even Jordan doesn't have the context that he's protecting Candace. I do think that for Jordan, he should have figured it out this episode, because especially that scene towards the back end when he was just like really be like, well, at least I'm not protecting or whatever. Somebody's selling drugs, like, who are you, you know, and he's like, I can't rat on that person. I don't want to ruin someone else's life. But Candace, like, I do get it. She's going through a lot. Her father or whatever, from what I've gathered, they're struggling to afford things and stuff. But I don't know, man. At this point, I do feel like what Lois said, that sometimes in life, you really do need to kind of realize there's some decisions that you can't take back, and this is kind of one of them. But Jonathan, being the good kid that he is, as a result of Clark and Lois's parenting, doesn't want to ruin Candace's life and is willing to ruin his own. But at this point, I'm really thinking, I don't know if you should, though, man. I don't know if you should. And I wonder, and I'm very intrigued as to how this is all going to come out, because that storyline, this episode, wasn't really concluded. Like, it happened with Clark having a go at him at the end, and that was a very, very firm bollocking from Superman, to put it in a blunt way there. I just really am engaged in all of this stuff. Like, some people may not be into it. It's the family-esque stuff, but from me going into the show, I knew exactly what their outlook was with the concept, and I feel like they do a really good job with it. And they don't, as I said, like some other CW shows, really lean into it. The message is so obvious sometimes. This is very nuanced. It doesn't drag on. And as a result, it is just a decent show that navigates and also implements all kinds of aspects of storylines without ever getting repetitive, usually. And as I said, without getting into the nitty gritty, that scene where we had Lois, like, he was caught with what? And then we have, do not lie to me, Jonathan. But again, without repeating everything I just said, I feel like they know what they're doing with Jonathan scenes with Lois Lane and respected actors. They know that their chemistry works so well, because some of the best scenes between those two actors were with each other in season 1. Lois and Jonathan, not only that, it's not only that they know these two work well together, but they are, you know, Jordan is kind of a mirror of his father in many ways, of the Superboy-esque kind of thing, and Lois is not powered. She has her own interesting storyline, and as a result, Jonathan is the non-powered son. That's not to say that he won't get powers one day, but always usually pairing those two characters instead of, like, sure, we got Clark at the end, but doing the heavy emotional lines and scenes with those two is always a special thing. And I will keep praising Jordan Elsas, who plays Jonathan, funnily enough called Jordan, and Elizabeth Tulloch. They're absolutely fantastic. The next part of this episode, I love it. As I always say, usually when they do it in quite a lot of the episodes of the season, I love how Superman and Lois cut between different scenes, build that tension up. It's like two things are going on at the same time, thoroughly engaging, and provides for quite an often last act of the episode, really enticing moment to just watch unfold, or moments, should I say, with what's going on in respective parts of the episodes. But like here, I not only loved the conversation we had between Taro and what was going on with Superman. We had freaking US DC agent, if you will, Anderson acting like a dick, using really barbaric tactics like a Kryptonian collar to bring Morgan Edge, or Taro, should I say, to heel, as he puts it. Really, really nasty stuff. Like, what a piece of crap. I know in his eyes, again, the reason why I keep making those US agents references, because Anderson ideally is a good man deep down, but the things he's willing to do to achieve a means to an end is stuff like this. So for now, Clark does give the Fortress of Solitude location, but as we know, Bizzaro is actually in Taro's fortress. But the episode, interestingly, played it that we had this argument between Superman and Taro, and where we didn't see them planning it, but it looked as though Taro was gonna maybe leverage some of his, you know, I guess, lack of torture, hopefully for him, through exposing some of Superman's secrets, such as his family and things like that. So that would be exposing his identity as Clark Kent. Now, you could argue Taro could have done that this whole time, but as we clearly know, despite them somewhat being at odds with one another at times, he doesn't want to just completely F up. It's not like the Joker or like that of another villain who just kind of would love to completely screw with their adversaries, kind of, or rivals' identity. Taro is his brother at the end of the day, and this episode at the end beautifully displayed that. But again, we weren't privy to that, so when that happened and it's like the soldiers came in and the Anderson was like, no, get out of there, pull back, and then they started punching them, I was like, damn. And, you know, it is quite a subverted expectation, but obviously Taro ended up back in prison later on, but when he was just like nodded, they went to the fortress, and I was like, oh my god. So I could almost see a way that this could have gone, like Taro was going to be out there, not necessarily do another whole Morgan Edge plot again, but I didn't necessarily expect for him to go back into prison. I thought maybe he'd be out there, and who knows what could happen. But I get why ultimately they did bring him back in the cell, because A, like, he kind of deserves it after what he did. That was very messed up with his arc, despite if he's on a redemption arc or not, you kind of have to pay for that. And Superman would always be wondering, like, what is my brother somewhat up to? But I do love this long arc they have over multiple seasons with this character. Adam Rayner, who plays Morgan Edge, another thing I'll echo, just through and through, like Elizabeth Tulloch's Lois Lane, is one of the best castings in this show. Absolutely through and through. He is fantastic. But as a result, this kind of makes things, again, to use the US Agent comparison, more twisted for Anderson. It's like they've been working together this whole time. Superman's been lying to me. Oh my god, you know, so, you know, it's just in that, for example, if you watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you have US Agent believe that Bucky and, you know, even Falcon at a certain point were somewhat against him, or maybe just manipulating whatever was going on, when he was just a good guy trying to do the right thing. It's a very mirrored thing there, I feel, between that arc and this arc in this show with those two characters. And again, in this moment, to kind of rant about my general signing off on this again, where we have, like, that other soldier saying, but sir, General Hardcastle, and Anderson's like, well, she's going to take over my command if I don't prove that I'm right. I just still felt like this kept setting up that she never signed off on this, but I don't think that happened. So this is where, even more to US Agent thing, the super serum analogy or comparison, I'm gonna just jack myself up with XK. We called that here on this channel a long time ago. I'm not blowing smoke on my ass because I felt like that was a very obvious thing that Anderson was gonna do. I couldn't guarantee it, but lo and behold, he was taking things into his own hands. If you can't get something done by someone else or whatever, as the saying goes, you do it yourself. So he starts going into the Project 7734 or whatever it is, weapons arsenal, and is basically getting ready to be at the point of having a death match with Superman, Taro, and Jesus, even Bizzaro. Taro just cracks me up, and I don't want him to leave this show, if ever. That's why I was sad, and I did feel like it was a misdirect even when it was happening, but you're never quite sure when he was maybe dying. But when he was just like, it was glorious, brother! 2 sons of Krypton vanquishing their human oppressors, and you had like, oh, I feel like Lara was even smiling in that moment. It was very interesting to learn teasers from Bizzaro as well about how Morgan Edge on his Earth were brothers that were inseparable. He did indeed betray his family in the end, just they were the closest of brothers, and he said that, you know, what drove us apart, and Bizzaro more or less answered that your wife tried to kill me. Now, we never found out, I don't think, unless I'm just honestly being silly here, who his wife was. Like, Morgan Edge was like, I can't believe I had a wife. You know, she must have been a goddess. But I was just thinking, who is his wife? And maybe it's too obvious to say this, but is it Ali Alston? I mean, I really am dying to know what the drama was on that Earth. Maybe as a result of Bizzaro trying to stop Ali Alston from taking over that world like she did on Bizarro's world. As a result, Morgan Edge's wife, Ali, would, I guess, as a result, try to kill him. Let me know if you think that's too obvious of a speculation. Let me know if you have any ideas as to who Morgan Edge's wife would be. It's just quite a shame to learn that if they were the closest of brothers and inseparable on Bizarro's world, it's like, why would Morgan Edge really support Ali? Unless he really just was like in a similar storyline, brother, join me, brother, like, come on, like, what Ali, my wife, is doing is kind of what is the best thing in a very warped way, yet somewhat also maybe mirroring this storyline in season 1 where he also offered him to join him, but it's just in a reverse way on our Earth. They weren't the closest of brothers, but it still ended up in that ultimatum of join me, together we will rule. Okay, this isn't Star Wars. Anyway guys, this is when the missiles attack the fortress and all shit goes south. Like, oh my god, I was really wondering what is going down here. Love it when Taro was like, I don't appreciate intruders in my home, but yeah, Anderson through taking so many puffs of the inhaler was really, 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 really strong. I wish there was some kind of repercussion from that, though. Taking so many hits of the XK, I feel like should have, I don't know, even just in makeup caused a nosebleed or ears bleed. Like, if you keep going down this path, it will kind of be bad for your health. But at the moment, I don't know if there's any proper repercussions from taking XK. I know he was a bit beat up by the end of that when he, did what he did to Bizzaro, but it didn't feel... And maybe they did show that he was getting a bit weird when he was puffing it continuously, but I would like to see more repercussions from taking something like that as a human being, because putting your body through, if you think about this, maybe nitpicky for some people, but you're human still, you're not actually Kryptonian. So when you're punching people, yeah, XK may temporarily make your bone density to that of a Kryptonian's, but it must have, since you do not have Kryptonian cells of strength, do something to you. And maybe they still will address that. And I really like that moment when Taro didn't want his brother to die, because for all he knew, he had to make a split-second decision. So that's why I believe it. Like, Taro saw that Kal-El was about to die. There's a lot of nuance there. I think he values his family. As we literally saw at the end of the episode, tell your son I'm sorry. Like, there is clearly some inner workings of not just the season 1 guy we necessarily saw. So he made the split-second decision to take those 3 kryptonite bullets because he was already weakened by the power dampeners in the cells. He wasn't healing. I like the whole laser vision attempt, but it still wasn't enough, so Superman had to prioritize his brother and go to the sun, and they played it off like he was still dying because, there was that somber music that played on. And if anything, one of the saddest takeaways from this episode is I feel sorry for frickin' Bizzaro. Screw you, Anderson. But I love that moment when we had General Anderson, take the pistol, and as we know, kryptonite makes Bizzaro stronger, so he just pushed the bullet within him, and we had Anderson what the hell? But it still wasn't enough because the XK weakened Bizzaro, interestingly, and that was as a result, Anderson identified that, and it was his weapon of choice. Just kept grenading him in the face with continuous XK gas inhalant form, I suppose, and that made him weak to the point of where it was quite, I would say almost graphic, just through the bone crunch. And we saw Bizzaro getting snuffed out, and then crunch of bones, and he was done for. I do think that he is dead, but I do want to just speculate. I'm not saying this is the case. I wonder if the kryptonite that he pushed within himself will... Yes, the neck has been broken, but maybe because of that kryptonite that was pushed in his body doesn't mean he's dead. However, I do want to say, don't get carried away with that speculation or let that give you any hope, because as Superman said to Taro when he woke back up in the cell, was, oh, god damn it, I'm back here. But he did reaffirm that Bizzaro is indeed dead. And it was also, I guess, meant to serve how that could have been him. And that is very, very bad, because arguably, if Bizzaro didn't try and save Taro and Superman by distracting Anderson in that moment, Lois and the boys would have lost their father. It could have easily happened. So as a result, if they really did make Bizzaro, oh, he is alive, it kind of would maybe take a little bit of the power away from what that repercussion could have meant if Anderson did kill them. So let's just assume Bizzaro is dead, but screw you, Anderson, screw you. I love the line in the prison cell as well, but I also do have a little bit of an issue of this, but correct me if I'm wrong, please, please, please do. We have Superman say thank you to Taro, and Taro says, look, Kal-El, please say sorry to your son. And Clark very nicely says, maybe one day you can say that to himself. It's gives you these premonitions of the future where maybe they could have a roast on the Kent farm. Maybe not, but it's a prospect of optimism for the future, and I love that. The issue is, there was a soldier outside, and I don't know if it's intelligence known wide in the military that Superman has a son. So I do argue, if the military do not know, Morgan is saying, tell your son that, I'm sorry, maybe you could tell him yourself, when there's a soldier opening the door for Superman to leave, that's a bit problematic, because that soldier's oh my god, did we just learn new intelligence that Superman has a son? The only reason this is an issue, and this might be a complete waste of time in the video, by the way, because they might know that already, but the reason is, it was hard enough for America to trust Superman, this alien, to be trustworthy as their defense system, let alone who can do anything and change his mind at any point, right? But then to know that he has a son who they would assume, I guess, military-wise, worst-case scenario, that he is also a Kryptonian. Lo and behold, Jordan is. That's literally, to a military perception, a potential national security threat. So, since they don't have him logged and who he is, okay, is he under control of Superman? We need updates from you. Is he really, basically, and all the things in season 1, in those moments where he has almost been a threat. I argue it's a bit of a problem that that soldier heard that, because for now, if I'm right, obviously Sam Lane knew it, but the military itself only really knew about Superman. So yeah, I feel like they should have done that a little bit differently. My way of doing that would be to say that line, just like we did earlier when I really enjoyed it, in Kryptonian. I loved those lines in Kryptonian. You should have said it again in Kryptonian. But again, please do excuse me if the military already do know. But I've got a feeling they don't, which makes this a little bit like I would have done it a different way. It's also cool to know that Sam Lane is going to lead the manhunt for Anderson because he's the one who recommended him for the job. So we're going to get good old military General Lane back, I suppose, even if just temporary. And other than that, we have frickin' Anderson just being a dick, like, despite everyone, I suppose. Hey, I was told that you were, like, Allie, you were, like, bad. So I've decided to come to you, and, you know, what's this? And now, like, that's the other frickin' amulet. Like, that means both of them, as Allie said, well, this is the way to change worlds. If you combine those together, she can merge them together, and she can merge with her other self, and that means she can start dominating this world. Anderson... Screw you, man. But other than that, guys, I thoroughly really enjoyed this episode. Definitely one of the most entertaining this season. So what's left is to let me know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. Your thoughts on my thoughts. Any theories that you have or expanding theories on my theories or whatever. But other than that, I would really just appreciate a like. Maybe if you're brand new here, check if you're subscribed because you might be watching me week to week and you might not realize that you actually haven't subscribed yet. So that means even though you're getting recommended these videos, you might be missing out on all the other videos we do on this channel. If you want to follow me a little bit more, I'm very active on Twitter. I do have an Instagram as well. I do have a Discord server if you want to join that and talk to me and others in the BobaTalks community. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.